I remember it like yesterday when Matt came down the stairs and said so casually with a smile, I booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. I thought to myself, is this real? Can we really leave our amazing careers, friends, and family? Fast forward 10 months later, after all the hard conversations, endless checklists, and heartfelt goodbyes, we were heading to the airport with one backpack each, about to set out for a multi-year adventure around the world. Filled with excitement, we had no idea what to expect, but we knew it would be a fun ride. Join us as we share what we are learning on our journey of a lifetime. This is Passport Joy Travel Talk with Nikki and Matt Javit.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Whether you're in your car, you're running, whatever you're doing right now, thank you for putting us in your ears as we try to give you value back on all the travel we're doing around the world. Today, we're talking about Bangkok. This is the fourth time that we'll be in this city, and we love it. And we're going to talk to you why we love it so much. We're also going to talk to you about the trip that I made to BUMRUNGRAD International Hospital, why we decided to take that trip, the exam that I got, and just kind of some of the thought process that went through that to make that decision from a medical standpoint, financial standpoint, and the results of that. And then we're going to answer a question about this crazy time that we turned something bad into kind of a positive and got a lot of laughs out of it. As always, please subscribe on the podcast tool that you use. And when you have a chance, rate and review us. That helps us a great deal. Please stay tuned to the end of the podcast to listen to the review contest that we've been having ongoing. We have over $1,000 worth of prizes that we're giving away soon. And so you want to listen to that and listen to the brand that we have today. It's pretty exciting what they're giving away, and talk about your chances to win in the upcoming weeks. Okay. Thank you so much again for tuning in. We hope you enjoy this podcast. Sawadee krap. That is hello in Thai, at least how I say it. All right, this is our Bangkok, Thailand episode, a city that we love. We've been to Thailand 4 times now. We've been to Bangkok all 4 of those times separately. 3 days, 6 days, 2 days, and this time was 2.5 weeks. And we decided to go 2.5 weeks because we wanted to really take it in and check it out and really get the city vibe aspect of it, not necessarily some of the hot list things that you might see out there on certain websites, the things that you're supposed to do in Bangkok. We've done those. We enjoyed them when we did it, but this was more like let's understand what the culture is in the city. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. And also I did a medical exam as well that we're going to talk about. But some of the hot things that you should do that we're not going to talk about today, I'll let Nikki talk to you about that.
Yeah, so before we went to Thailand several years ago, we did those, your hot list, your top whatever things you should do. So Bangkok in general is full of wats and temples. And I don't know the exact stat on it, but there's well over 400 watts in Thailand alone. And so like some of the major watts that you should go see would be the Wat Phra Kaew. And I'm not sure exactly if that's how you should say it, but it's, I guess, common name is called the Temple of Emerald Buddha. And so we went and we saw that. And then the other really famous one is called the Wat Pho. And that is the Temple of the Reclining Buddha. And it's this huge golden Buddha that's kind of laying on its side. And it's just massive structure. And it's just a long Buddha that is made of solid gold. And so we saw that. And then there's another one that's the Wat Arun. And I think that's like the absolute most iconic temple in Bangkok. At nighttime, it lights up and you can see it from across the actual river. And it's opposite of the Grand Palace. And that's another one that a lot of people go and see. And then the other things that we did were like island hopping. So we went and we did like the Phi Phi Islands, and we stayed particularly on Phi Phi Don and stayed in this really, really amazing resort where you just felt like you were just plopped in the middle of, like a tropical paradise. And you can take the boats to go island hopping and see like Maya Bay or Maya Beach, which I think now they have different regulations on when you can and can't go. So during certain seasons or whatnot, they're trying to preserve the area, rightfully so, because of pollution and lots of tourists that now are going there. And just based on the nature and the sea life and stuff like that, they don't want the pollution to go there. So we did this other thing around there. It was called Monkey Beach, where you go to this beach. You can take a boat to get there. And on the beach, when you get there and you get off the boat, there's these monkeys that are all on this beach. And you can feed them like fresh tropical fruits and things like that. So you bring bags of cucumbers and bananas. And it's kind of funny just to watch these little monkeys like eat right out of your hand. Yeah, those are just some of the things that we did prior to this past trip. But yeah, so this time when we went to Bangkok, we really wanted to go and be there for an extended period of time, just because I feel like each time that we had gone, we're just kind of, I felt in a rush and we weren't able to really enjoy it. So all the things that the aforementioned things we did not do, but we had already done them before. So this was more of like, let's just go to Bangkok. Let's enjoy Thailand. Let's enjoy Bangkok. And just kind of do what we want to do now. And we don't want to hit up the Watts, or we don't need to do all these other things. Let's just kind of see what it has to offer. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. See, and during those trips as well, we went to Chiang Mai and we also went to Phuket. And then Nikki mentioned Koh Phi Phi. So those were separate parts of Thailand, totally different than Bangkok. So we just want to spend time in Bangkok proper. So let's just talk about the amazingness of Bangkok. I guess the first thing is it's a huge city. It's massive, and it is, so Nikki calls it her Asian Chicago, because you get the vibe on the street, diverse. It's like a melting pot because there's a ton of travelers, and it's really built for tourism and the hectic nightlife that comes with it. So when you're walking the streets, you see people from every continent, which also comes with a lot of different diverse foods. So the foods are amazing and endless. And it gives you great Thai food, obviously, Mediterranean, Indian food. They have good American bars. And what's cool too is with the American bars is they show American sports, which was nice, and everything in between. So it's a great hodgepodge of food. And then their street food actually is different parts of the world. The street food is not always as edible as other places, but in Thailand, it is definitely edible, and it's savory, and it's good, and it's clean, and it's well kept, and it's extremely it's just really tasty and cheap as hell, because you can just get some meals for about $1.50, and it's a full meal, and it's really tasty, and you leave feeling extremely satisfied. They also have great shopping. I'll let Nikki talk about some of the shopping that they have there.
Yeah, so the shopping in Bangkok, it varies. So you have like your world-class shopping and your malls that will have, like your Louis Vuitton, your Christian Dior, and your really high-class stores. But then you have these really neat malls that contain like boutique shops. So Matt had found this really cool store. It was called Terminal 21. And inside this mall, which was called Terminal 21, it was a store, and I don't remember how many levels it was, maybe about 5 or 6, but it had like over 650 boutique stores on every single floor. And in addition, it had like this amazing food court, but it was just stores that you couldn't find anywhere else. And I think the concept is that each retailer that was inside this mall owned their own little booth, and they sold just their own little boutique clothing store shop type thing. And so you would go there and they would name their own price on their clothing. And it seemed to me that, it was so cheap. So like if you would find like a shirt shop for a guy and they would be selling t-shirts, you would go there and you could buy like a t-shirt for $3, but it was t-shirts that you legitimately could not find anywhere else. It's not like another mall would have these t-shirts.
Yeah, it was really cool because on these different levels of the mall, they also divided out with like men's clothes, women's clothes, jewelry, and they segmented out so it was real easy for the shopper. But like Nikki was saying, these booths, these little stores, these tiny little stores that were like about 100 per level, it was essentially like a market. Like if you've ever been to a street market in another country, it can be extremely chaotic when you're walking through the street market, but they have all kinds of different goods for sale, but it's outdoor typically, it's dirty, it's chaos, and you bargain, and there's all kinds of different things that come with it. But this being in a mall, it seemed cleaner. It was more organized. The prices were still extremely cheap, just like it would be at a market, but it seemed to flow better, and it was easy to find products that you would actually wear, because sometimes the street markets, a lot of the same products. These seem to be more unique products, but at very discount prices. We ended up getting a few items there, and it was really nice.
Yeah, so they have those, like the boutique stores that I'm talking about. And then in addition, I always love what Matt was describing as, the stores that you can find on the streets. So the stalls that you can bargain. And it's a definite stark contrast to a store that you would find in a mall. So those stores on the streets, the vendors, the conditions outside are a little bit different. So you're dealing with a stall that is a makeshift booth on a street. It's dirty, you have the smells, you're dealing with a lot of foot traffic, it's crowded. Usually people are coming up to you and asking you like how they can help you. And there's not a lot of personal space, so to speak, around you. But, after traveling for a while, you kind of just get used to that, or at least I have. But I don't mind that. And I somewhat appreciate it, just the hustle of that and just seeing how these people make their everyday living doing that. But you can get some really good items out there on the street. And again, there's things that they're selling that you cannot find in malls. I mean, if you go to a normal mall, commercial mall, everybody is wearing the same thing. If I go to a Louis Vuitton, it's the same Louis Vuitton purse that the next girl has. If I go to a retail store, it's the same sweater that the next girl has. But when you go to these stalls outside, or you go to these boutique stores in these shopping malls like the Terminal 21 I was explaining, I mean, these clothes, I don't see other people wearing these clothes. And I haven't had issues with the quality of the clothing that I've bought. I've bought t-shirts that have lasted several months on end after several hand washing and machine washing. And so they've really lasted, and they're really well made.
Yeah, and again, the food court that Nikki mentioned, Pier 21, it was on not the top floor, because I think the top floor was a movie theater, but it was one of the top floors. That in itself was a unique experience, where they tried to bring what you would get outside, the kind of the vibe of multiple or a lot of different food vendors outside. They brought that indoors as well at the same prices. We were shocked at how cheap that food was. So if you find yourself in this mall or one of the malls, look for the food courts, because typically we don't eat at food courts, because it's just kind of, not that it's cliche, but it's not as authentic. It's not a very good experience. But in this case, it was authentic, because it was Thai street food, and Thai street food prices. So it was amazing, and a surprise that we found, and we ended up going a couple of times and tried different things there. So I'll tell you what, the other thing that was eye-opening, and it's kind of been repetitive as we visit a few malls around the world, is the activity in malls. I know in the US and brick and mortar in general has been on a slight decline because of the internet and Amazon and some of the things going on with shopping that way. But in other parts of the world, as the middle class continues to grow and their spending increases, they seem to be shopping like crazy. Like every time that we would go to this mall, or there was a couple malls around us that we went and looked for some things that we were trying to pick up, they were crazy chaotic. And it wasn't Westerners, it was locals. So it's kind of a reflection of the economies on a global scale. I think they're catching up to where the US was 15, 20 years ago, when there was a lot of time spent in malls. As our middle class grew, their middle class now is growing like crazy as well. And they want to spend their money that they're making. So they're out in the malls being seen, and also picking up items that they want at these awesome prices. Okay, let's talk about the night markets.
Okay, so one of my most favorite things to do is go to the night markets. I just like it because just the atmosphere is different than during the day. The temperature also cools off, and it's a lot more enjoyable to walk around during the night, and you could just see like a different vibe, and it's just more enjoyable to me. But they have this night market in the Salam area. It's called the Patpong Night Market. And it's a really cool night market where all the lights come out, the vendors come out, and they have the stalls like what you would envision for a typical market. But they have everything. I mean, if you cannot find it here, you definitely cannot find it anywhere. But they sell anything from souvenirs, they have clothes, they have jewelry, and they have jewelry. They'll sell you a Rolex, but it's a fake Rolex. But they have really nice jewelry, like handmade jewelry. They have luggage, and it's quality luggage too, like roller luggage, duffel bags, etc. They have shoes. It's funny because you can buy Nikes, but you know they're the fake Nikes. You can see it, like the check just doesn't looks a little off. It's kind of funny just to see, but they have tennis shoes and they have sandals and things like that. But they have some pretty cool artwork that people really like, they paint, they hand make. And it's just really cool to see everyone come out and just sell their stuff. So, I mean, you can definitely buy junk. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they have the magnets and things. They try to get the tourists to come here and buy it, take this home and, here's your little piece of Bangkok when you go home, which is totally fine because, I mean, I used to buy that stuff, but I just don't have room for it in my bag anymore. But it's just really neat to see everybody out there and just selling their stuff. And some of the really cool stuff that people are hand making is just, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's a really good way to give back to the local economy if you are traveling, and it makes great souvenirs back home for yourself or for loved ones that you're taking back. And just to paint a picture on a night market, if you've never been to one of these countries that has this on a regular, it's essentially you take a U.S. city with the narrow streets of the alleys and whatnot, and during the day, it is what it is. It's an alley. There's nothing there. The typical business of a day goes by, and then at night, they pop up these tents, covered tents, and they display their goods, as Nikki was describing, all a full range of goods. But it's wild to walk through during the day, and there's nothing there except the typical foot traffic or transportation that's coming in to deliver things. And then at night, they pop up and they set up their stalls every day, and then they turn into an outdoor market. It's wild. So if you've never done it and see it, we love markets as we travel the world because it's the quickest and easiest way to get in touch with locals and to see the things that there's. A lot of the stuff globally is pretty much not the same, but it's close to the same as far as knick-knacky t-shirts, clothing. But you get a chance to interact with them and see their different selling styles. Like Vietnam is very relaxed. Bangkok is kind of in between. India can be extremely aggressive. So you get to see the different styles of selling techniques and how they push their goods or don't push their goods. So for us, it's a great way to interact closely with the culture. And then you never know, you might meet a person that you hit it off with if you're attempting to buy something, or you make eye contact. And it's a way that you really get a true vibe and closeness to the local people.
I think it's also really cool to see or just to think of and wrap like this concept in your head just is mind blowing to me that these people, like Matt said, during the day, these markets are not there and at night they are. And some of these stalls, these people have thousands and thousands of items that they're placing out on tables. And to just think that they're placing these little trinkets out on tables and then so setting that up. And then at nighttime, whenever they're going home at night, they're breaking all of that down and bringing that home with them because during the day, it's not going to be there. And it's just mind blowing to me that the work and the time and the effort and energy that goes into that, like putting that up and breaking it down. I mean, that's just so much time. I don't know. I mean, I've never seen, I think that would be interesting to see someone from start to finish, how long that process actually takes, whether that be an hour, whether it be 20 minutes. I mean, do they have it down to 20-minute time? Like how many people does it take to do that? But we often walk by them, the people that have the tiny little trinkets. And I think to myself, like, how long did it take that person to put that stall up? And then how long is that going to take that person to take that stall down? It's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah. And the work that goes into that is just chaos. And a lot of these things is multi-generational. So you'll see a 6-year-old with her mom who's there with her father. And it's like they're all working it because it's like a business. It's a full business, a family business. and they're all working their tail off. So I guess if there's a travel tip in there is respect the people that are doing this and treat them, because it can be overbearing at times, because you're walking by and you'll pass 7 or 8 different booths and they're all pulling to try to sell you the same thing. And you get in a zone, you're like, I don't need it. If you just get in the habit of thanks, but no thanks type thing, eye contact, and just don't shoot people, because it can be extremely disrespectful at times. And we've seen people interact that way, and it's just not cool. The other thing, shifting from markets to just the nightlife, it's Bangkok. It's crazy. I mean, it's probably not as crazy as some of the movies out there that displayed a certain way, but it is. I mean, there's a ton of options. It's got the neon lights. It's got the whole vibe, pole dancing, go-go bars, entertainment everywhere. Awesome. There's awesome sports bars, great drink prices. Because the dollar is weak currently, the prices aren't as cheap as you might think, but it is a big city. So the prices are still competitive, but not crazy cheap in the bars. But it is, in some of those neighborhoods, it is mayhem and it is chaotic. And then also chaotic is the traffic. It's something they're trying to get better at. They do have public transport, so you can take trains around the city, which we highly recommend. Nikki and I walked a ton. If it was within 45 to 50 minutes, we were footing it, because it makes sense. And then they have got the Grab scooters. You can jump on the back of a scooter. Uber's now gone away in Southeast Asia, but they've got different options that way, that you can jump on the back of a scooter and see the city that way, which we've done on occasion as well. But the traffic, if you get in a car in traffic, it can get at a snail's pace where you're not moving. There was a situation where we had a very far place to go, and it just kills hours of time. If you don't want to foot it and you want to walk, then it can definitely kill your schedule if you want to take a car. And then the tuk-tuks, just be aware, the tuk-tuks are reliable, they're good, those guys know what they're doing, but they will attempt, if your price is super cheap, like if you want a tuk-tuk and you're like, wow, how the hell is this so cheap? They're very likely going to take you to a tailor, because that's kind of their deal. So the tailors in Bangkok are amazing. Not this trip, but our first trip there, I got a suit, I got 2 sports coats for a really competitive price. And that actually did come because the tuk-tuk driver took us somewhere. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to come anyway. So I ended up buying stuff. But just be aware that these guys, these tuk-tuk drivers, they get partnerships with the tailors, and then they'll take you there. They'll drop you off at a tailor, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to be here. But you're like, no, they'll convince you. They'll very nicely convince you to go in. They'll just say, like, hey, they got great prices. Can you please just do this for me? And then you go in, and those guys get a kickback for dropping you off. And then if you buy something, then they really get money. So just be aware of that. If the price is super low, just make sure you let them know, like, hey, I don't want to go anywhere else. I'm trying to go from A to B. Don't go anywhere in between, and get me there. So that's something to think about and consider. And then I guess as a wrap up, it's a city. It's a big city. So everything's close, great restaurants, awesome bars, the fashion, the clothing. It's just an amazing city. Be aware, because of the lack of the social system in Thailand, there's a lot of beggars, and you'll see a lot of amputees on the road begging. So it's just part of the culture. They're not aggressive. They typically just beg, and we've given out a ton of different stuff as we were there, and we have. It's one of those things, again, it's kind of your personal preference, how you treat that, but they are everywhere. So just be aware of that. It's because of there's no social system. So as we travel, we get to understand that some places have beggars, some places don't, and it's because of how politically those people are taken care of. Nikki and I had these conversations as we were walking. The number of amputees that you see there is just at such a high level, but we know that it's comparable to the U.S., but the U.S. has different social systems in place that we take care of them folks so they don't have to go on the streets and beg like some of these people do. So just take that into account when you see them, that, hey, their begging is probably their only way that they have any source of income possible to survive on a daily basis. And some of the people, there's older people on the streets, but it's not too bad. We saw the same people every day, and it's something that you will see. Okay, let's transition. While we were there, I got a full executive medical exam at a very nice international hospital called BUMRUNGRAD. I'm going to let Nikki, because of her medical background, I'm going to let her tell you why we made that decision, how we came upon it, and then we'll kind of get into the treatment that I got and some of the other stuff.
Yeah, so several years ago, Matt and he had found this documentary, and it was by Morgan Spurlock. And I'm not sure if he's still doing this show, but it's called The Inside Man. And the title of it was called Medical Tourism. And he at the time was having a shoulder problem, and he wasn't sure if he had a torn rotator cuff or if he just had something like wrong with his shoulder, like maybe just an injury or whatnot. But he had gone to a physician in the United States and got a quote, and it was in the thousands of dollars just to get an MRI on his shoulder. And frustrated by this, with just the healthcare system and the high costs in the United States, he started doing some research on different institutions that he could go to outside of the United States. And he came upon BUMRUNGRAD International Hospital and thought to himself, if I can find a reasonable flight to travel to Thailand, go to BUMRUNGRAD and get these tests that I need on my shoulder, while I'm there, let's dabble in a couple other tests and see and do some comparative analysis, what I can get done versus the cost of the United States, and go from there. So he flew to Bangkok just to prove that he could spend 2 nights in the hospital there. And a little known fact about the hospital of BUMRUNGRAD, it's actually the CEO of BUMRUNGRAD's hospital was a former CEO of a hotel chain. And so when you go to BUMRUNGRAD, when you walk in, it literally looks like a Marriott. It's amazing. And so when you stay at the hospital itself, it's been described as staying in a hotel. So he said that he was going to go there, do all these tests, and stay 2 nights, and then have his procedures done at BUMRUNGRAD and get his shoulder checked out. So to wrap his whole thing up, he ended up getting the MRI done on his shoulder, some blood panels. He got his consultation done for his shoulder to make sure that he didn't have a torn rotator cuff that necessitated a shoulder surgery. And he ended up paying 94,000 Thai baht, which was the equivalent of about 3,000 US dollars. And with his hotel stay and airfare, his total trip cost $4,300. That would have ended up costing him in the United States $14,000. And so I remember after watching this with Matt, I thought to myself, wow, that is crazy, because if I were to go and just get an MRI in general of any part of my body which needed an MRI without insurance, I mean, that's thousands of dollars, a couple $1,000s. And Matt had back surgery 4 years ago, and I remember how much his surgery cost. And thankfully, we had health insurance at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, if we did not have health insurance, we couldn't have afforded that surgery. And so we were going to be in Bangkok, and we usually get an annual exam anyways. And so we were like, hey, why not just go ahead and get this exam?
Yeah. And the other thing that added to that was I'm at an age where I needed a very good, thorough exam. And I talked to my buddy that I met in Saigon that lives in Saigon, Vietnam, also known as Ho Chi Minh City. And he goes to BUMRUNGRAD every year, a couple years, to get similar tests. He's a few years older than me, but he does similar tests. So his reassurance in BUMRUNGRAD when we saw him in December, and then backed by what we saw in this documentary, and Nikki looked into the pricing. She was like, oh my God, this pricing is extremely cheaper than what we would have to pay in the US if we got similar. We ended up booking it. And that is basically how we started to do this.
So the exam that we chose for Matt, it was called the comprehensive exam, and it was for males over 40 years old. And what it included is just your basics, your vital signs, a physical examination where the physician would come in and look at you, had your blood panels, which included your CBC. It went over your fasting blood sugar. It did your lipid panel. It did a kidney function test, a liver function test. It also checked your thyroid. The cool thing about this exam, it also did a hepatitis screening. It did some tumor markers as well, checked for some cancer, and it did a urine examination, a stool examination, and this one also did a stress test where Matt had to go on a treadmill. And then in addition to that, it did a full EKG, it did a chest x-ray, a abdominal ultrasound, and then it also did his electrolytes and a eye exam. And then Matt will go ahead and talk to you just a little bit about what his day looked like because I didn't go along with him.
Yeah, so it was I was so happy that Nikki set me up for the early appointment. So I was there at 6:30 a.m. and as Nikki described, it's like a hotel. They do this thing so often that you basically go from station to station. So I checked in on the 10th floor. I went through all that, gave them all my information, reiterated that. That only took like 10 minutes. And then the process began. I started getting blood drawn, all the easy stuff, the blood pressure, height, which I'm 6'6". Nikki's right about that one. We debated in the past. I've always thought I was 6'5". I'm now 6'6". It must have been from the back surgery or whatnot. But I'm 6'6". Got the weight and all that other stuff done. And then from there, they just move you through the process of all the different things that Nikki described. And it was so thorough and so easy. Obviously, whenever they're getting picked and prodded and any of that stuff, it's not fun. But I was one of I probably saw the same 6 dudes around my age, but a little bit older than me all day long. And we all just went through this thing together. I was probably the first one there, and they were trickling behind me. But they've got a locker room that you go in and out of, and it was really easy. I don't want to get into too many. There's some parts that were more difficult than others, but it wasn't that bad and not a lot of wait time. So I was essentially done near 10:30, 11 o'clock. I was done. However, I had a hiccup on my stress test that Nikki described. There was some sort of marker on my EKG reading that showed that I could have some heart problems, which that was a big scare, freaked me out big time. I didn't tell Nikki about it because I didn't want to freak her out as well. But I ended up having to get another test, and to go through that test, they were going to do a more thorough exam as I did the stress test. So I had to do a second stress test that they essentially is more thorough. They would put me on the table. They put this, Nikki knows the terms better than I do, but they put this monitor on an ultrasound screening, I believe, of sorts, some sort of diagnostic that went on my chest. So they got a different reading, but that one came back, I guess negative, but it was positive to me that there was nothing wrong. And actually it gave me more confidence to know that the doc basically said, holy cow, this looks great. There's nothing wrong with your arteries. Your heart looks wonderful. Congratulations type thing. So I left there. And this is one of those things that getting older stinks, but it's one of those things where it makes you feel more confident that the things that we're doing, exercise, food, those things that we're doing are paying off, and it puts me in a good spot mentally, and it makes me just feel better as we're going along. So I was reassured by that visit.
Yeah. And the whole thing that we described price-wise, it was $720, I believe, US dollars. And that is cash price. So no insurance, $720 out the door. And that's crazy, insane crazy for all of those tests. You cannot beat that price for all of those screenings, tests. The stress test alone, the EKG, the ultrasounds, an eye exam. It's awesome. And the good part about it too is that they will give you an electronic copy of your results, a paper copy too if you want it, and then you can go ahead and forward your results to your physician at home if you like, which we did, and then you can keep the results for yourself. And like Matt said, the wait time was very minimal in between each station, and he just felt like it was just a smooth transition in between each. And the physicians spoke really good English, and he could understand everything, and they explained the whole process to him from each station to each station. So yeah, the overall experience for him was awesome.
Yeah, and then we also got a dental cleaning because we were due for a cleaning. The last one we did was in Greece about six, 7 months ago. So we did dental cleaning as well. That was really good, really thorough. The equipment they used was awesome. But I guess in general, the takeaway here as we wrap this up is the idea that growing up in America, you just think that Western medicine is the only way to go, and we have the best hospitals or physicians or whatnot. I would just say keep an open mind that there's facilities outside of the U.S. and other places that are really good, really strong. And to be honest with you, a lot of these physicians are educated in the U.S. and then they come back home. Or we saw some folks that were Americans as also working there as well. So I guess be an open mind because it's medicine. They do a great job and it's extremely efficient. And we felt they're leaving extremely confident by their professionalism, their communication, and the comfort that we'll definitely probably go back at some point if we're in this part of the world and I can get a test like this to keep the cost down, but also get the information I need to move on in life. All right, that is it on Bangkok. Again, we love this city. I'm sure this will not be our last time coming back. And there's so much to explore, and everybody has a different experience every time they go there. So we don't have all the answers, but this was our experience in Bangkok. Thank you. I found a coffee and tea that I absolutely love. Birch Boy's Chaga Coffee and Tea is based out of upstate New York. Now, let me attempt to get scientific on you for a minute. Chaga, that's spelled C-H-A-G-A, is a super mushroom that has one of the highest antioxidant concentrations among any food in the world. It's a superfood. It grows on live birch trees in semi-Arctic climates, which is why the Adirondack Mountains are Chaga's perfect habitat. Rich in antioxidants, vitamins, and nutrients, it is no mystery that Chaga has been dubbed the Mushroom of Immortality by the health community. I love this coffee and tea so much that I had it shipped to me while traveling, and I carried it in my bag to make it so I can make it on the road as a substitute for times when I'm not drinking the local brands that I attempt to try. The young team behind the product is wonderful, and their vision to make Chaga a household name is a powerful one. I found these guys when I was doing some research on startup companies. They are full of energy and they have a great vision, and they really want to make this coffee a national success, and I believe in them. You can check out their products at passportjoy.com/coffee. Again, /coffee. And I'm confident you'll love this product and want to try it on your own. They always have deals out there to get it cheaper. And not only coffee and tea, they also have soap and some other products. So check that out, and I'm sure you'll love it.
Moosejaw.com is an online and brick-and-mortar retailer specializing in outdoor recreation apparel and gear for snowboarding, rock climbing, hiking, and camping. They sell name brands such as North Face, Patagonia, Merrell, Prana, Marmot, and many more. It's actually how I purchased my Patagonia Nano Puff jacket for all of the hiking adventures that we've gone on during our travels. They have free 2-day shipping on any of the orders that you purchase that are over $49. And don't forget to sign up for the Moose Jaw Rewards program to earn an additional 10% cash back on every regular non-sale purchase that you can order. It's totally free to sign up, and you can use your reward cash for future purposes. To get more details and discounts on your travel gear, simply go to passportjoy.com/moose. Again, passportjoy.com/moose to purchase your future travel gear. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to do some questions and answers. A little Q&A action to start us off. Our question comes from Big Pat in Houston. Pat's a podcast peer and a friend of mine. He has the Stay the Course podcast, which is a hilarious, raw, real podcast that interviews comedians in Houston, but it's also very uplifting, and he talks about just real content conversations. It's a lot of fun. I like listening to Big Pat's podcast. He asked, did you ever have a day on your travels where everything went wrong and stunk, but we made the best of it and ended up having a good laugh? As Nikki and I talked about this, one particular 24, 36-hour thing stuck out to us, and it came early in our travels, and it's, as we look back, it's pretty crazy and chaotic, and we stayed extremely positive the entire time, and looking back, it is pretty hilarious, as bad as it was. So we were in Chile, and we started the adventure in this segment of this adventure in Puerto Varas, which is in kind of the southern area of Chile. And we were going to end up in San Pedro de Atacama, which is in northern Chile. And if you know Chile, it's super long. I think it's the longest country in the world, maybe the longest coast in the world, something like that. But it's super long. And we started in the south. We're going to end up in the north. And when we were getting to San Pedro de Atacama, our goal was we're going to go stargazing because they've got the best place to watch stars in the world. And that's not an exaggeration. They really have the best place to watch stars in the world. So our adventure began in the south, and we started late at night. And part of traveling sometimes is if you have long bus rides, it's not bad to do them at night. First of all, so you can sleep better because you're on your regular schedule. And then you also get the opportunity to avoid paying that night stay somewhere. So if you're taking a cost on a bus trip, you don't have to pay that night stay in a hostel or a hotel or an Airbnb. So you kind of save that cash, which is pretty cool. So we did that in this particular trip. We had a 12-hour bus trip to Santiago. So from the south to Santiago, we get in Santiago's bus station, and then we have to kind of groggy when you're doing that wake up drill. I think it was mid morning, late morning. Then we had to take a bus from that bus station in Santiago to the Santiago airport. Now that was crazy. I remember looking back on this, and it was packed, like super packed. And in Chile, they don't care. They just want to put as many bodies as they can on these buses that are going from the station to the airport. So we were packed like sardines, and they just whip around these corners. So you're falling all over everybody. Your bags are on top of people. And it is just, Nikki and I, but neither one of us got a seat. So we're standing up with our big backpacks on, and it was just chaos. So we did that. Get to the airport, layover action there, 2 or 3 hours. Then we fly north to, I think it's called Calama, where we land there. And then we have another hour and a half bus ride in front of us to San Pedro de Atacama. So we're on that bus ride, taking that in. And I can remember clearly because it was pretty crazy. This guy was traveling with like this star mirror thing that was like a souvenir of his that he was so proud of. And it was big. It wasn't small. It was like a one of those mirrors you have in your house as a souvenir somewhere, but it fell on Nikki on her arm and it cut her. And it wasn't like a bad cut. I don't think she started bleeding or anything, but she bled a little bit, but regardless, it was like crazy. And so I don't know if I grabbed the guy, but I made it sure he understood that he screwed up, and he was very apologetic. And it was just a weird situation. Like, why did this guy put this above us? It didn't even balance correctly. And we never noticed. It was weird. We didn't never notice it because sometimes you just notice the things that are above you, and then the bus stopped and it fell and hit her. So we dealt with that. And then, so we go through all this travel. And we finally get to San Pedro de Atacama. And I'd done my research beforehand, and I swore this Airbnb, which ended up being a hostel, I swore it was like right around the corner. So when we get there, I didn't have service right away, I don't think, but I pulled up on the map, and we're 20 hours into traveling here, 24 hours into traveling, and it's starting to get dark, but I'm like, okay, let's just roll. So and Nikki's wonderful at, if it's within a mile and a half, which is essentially 15 to 20 minutes on foot, if we can do that, we typically do it. We'll take the Ubers and transportation sometimes, but if we can walk in and it's safe, we'll do it. So I convinced her to do it, and we did it. And I was an idiot. I had bad directions. So we're walking all around this town, and we're just sweating. I mean, just sweating bad, and it's nasty, and it's hot, and it's heavy, and it's just not fun. And I'm making the wrong directions, and I correct it. So we're going by the same places that we already were, and it's getting dark. And so Nikki's seeing my mess up. I'm apologizing. And then we start trekking in the right direction, and we're going like in the middle of nowhere, and it's really weird. And it's like, it's deserty, but it's less residential. I'm still checking my map. And at this point, I'm starting to get a little nervous, and it's starting to get darker and darker. And then we arrive to where we're supposed to be, and dogs are going crazy, but it's not marked. And I remember reading on the Airbnb description that it wouldn't be marked, but there were certain things that we could look for. And I'm looking for these things, and I'm not seeing them. So we keep walking and walking and walking. And then, so we pass our spot, and there's dogs that are getting extremely aggressive because there was a situation where there was this little girl, and the dogs were protecting this girl. And now the dogs were they were locked behind a fence, but they could easily jump over the fence and attack us. So that was pretty freaky. And we got through that. I used my flashlight, got us through that, and talked to the owner. And he's like, oh, it's down there. And in my broken Spanish, or Nikki's better Spanish. And then we got to the hostel. And I call it a hostel because it was an Airbnb, but they didn't tell us it was a hostel because it only had like 1 or 2 reviews. And I screwed that one up. I'll totally admit that. But we get there and our room's not ready. And this is late. This is like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And we were supposed to be there like 5:36. We still had this stargazing we're supposed to go to, which starts, I think, at like 10. And so we get there and it's just chaos. And at this point, they're not ready for us. They're either drunk or high or both. And there's like 4 people there. There's people in our room and they're half dressed. It's just a very weird, ironic. It's just, we're looking at you like, what is going on here? So I get in contact with our Stargaze people and I'm like, hey, this is what's going down. We're getting nervous. We're going to be late. Any help you can do. So they coordinated a hostel for us. And they coordinated not only a hostel, but a ride to get us to the hostel. And then the same guy was going to take us to the stargazing. So we get through all that. And then we arrive at the hostel and this guy's a piece of work. And it is not extremely clean, but it ended up being perfect because we needed this place to stay. We got locked in there. In the end, we got picked up and we go see stargazing. And it was amazing. And it was super fun and the best stars we'll ever see. And it was just so much fun.
Yeah, so the story really doesn't end there, but it was clutch. Our stargazing people came, picked us up. Well, they had a driver come pick us up, take us to our next hostel, like the Savior Hostel. We get to this hostel and it was the dirtiest place I have ever been to thus so far on our trip. There were like hairs in our bed. The bathroom didn't have toilet paper. It was a hot mess. There was like no less than 100 flies flying around in the sink and in the kitchen. And there was like stacks of dirty dishes everywhere. There was probably like 3 stray cats like walking in and out like from the outside. There was like doors just left all over like open. It was pretty gross. I mean, but like Matt said, we really did not have an option. I just wanted to get to stargazing. And we pulled up real quick after stargazing. We got to stargazing. It was amazing. But we pulled up after stargazing, like what our options were. And legit, the only thing that was left in this town were like $300 and $400 a night hotel rooms, which that's just not in our budget. So we just bit the bullet and laughed about it. And I slept in my clothes in my bed and never downturned the bed the entire time I was there. And 3 nights in this dirty hostel, and I slept there. So we made the most of it. And now looking back on it, we laugh at it and it's hilarious, but that's the dirtiest place I've ever stayed.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And just looking back, because it came so early in our travels too, I think it was kind of one of those test moments for us, that the long bus ride and the different transportation. But that's probably it, Pat. Thanks for that question. It's fun reliving that sometimes because we tend to forget some of the chaotic stuff we've done over the last 15 months or so. So thank you for that. Again, if you have questions, feel free to send them in at matt@passportjoy.com. Again, matt@passportjoy.com, or any of the socials, and we will target them and answer them when we can. Thank you so much. All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Thank you much for tuning in. As always, please check out the show notes at passportjoy.com under the podcast tab. We keep all the show notes for all the episodes there that make it easy for you to click on the links of all the things that we talked about. As we've been talking about, we've got this amazing contest to review on the podcast to enter, and it gives you the opportunity to win over $1,000 worth of prizes that we've had gifted to us from some of the brands that we know and love. Today's gift comes from Tommy John. Now, this is the underwear that I've worn since we left. It's high dollar, awesome underwear that gives you longevity and comfort as I travel. I love this stuff. I'm so glad I made the decision. I wore Tommy John probably 2 years before we left, and I'm so happy that I decided to bring these. I wear the trunks. They have a lot of different kinds of different underwear options, but they're gifting underwear for a week, which is unbelievable. Tommy John is the revolutionary men's underwear brand that's redefining comfort. It's the perfect underwear to keep you comfortable no matter where you travel. I wear them up Machu Picchu, crazy scooter rides in Saigon, playing hoops with those kids in India. If you've seen those photos, you can wear them anywhere. Tommy John uses proprietary fabrics and innovative design to make sure that your legs never ride up, the waistband never rolls down, and you never get a wedgie. And their horizontal quick draw fly has been described as life-changing. Plus, all Tommy John underwear is backed by the best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. So if you don't love the fit and feel of Tommy John, it's free. Again, thank you so much for Tommy John. They're gifting a week of underwear. So again, to enter the contest, review. If you don't know how to review, go to the website. I've got it all detailed out there. Review on iTunes. Please rate us there. This helps us a ton. We really appreciate all those that have done this already. And it helps us a great deal to get the podcast out to other people that are trying to learn travel tips. And as always, thank you for the awesome, just the side comments of people that have sent things over to us on the social media and stuff that says that we're helping in some way. Because that's all we're trying to do here is add value and give back in that way to tell our stories, but also to help you in some way, either to plan that long trip or some sort of extended travel if that's what you're doing. Okay, so as always, thank you so much for tuning in and safe travels.